I możemy.
And off we go.
No to dzień dobry, Film Spring Open.
Hello, Film Spring Open. On this Sunday afternoon, we're saying hello to everybody who's watching us on stream from many places in the world.
Zanim zaproszę na pierwszy dziś wykład, to mam do wszystkich serdecznie
And to all those that are here with us today, I have a very big request to all of you. I provide to Beata the time and place of your shooting of films. In every folder of the film, you have the number to Beata, and we really like to know where you're shooting your films, and also let me know too. And now, I think the artificial intelligence will wake us up on this autumn weekend. A fantastic Polish futurologist, philosopher, and the Doctor of Humanities, Professor Aleksandra Przegalińska, is here with us, and I'm so happy to leave the floor to her. Enjoy yourself. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Now I understand that we're in a very intimate group, but we are also in a hybrid group. Of course, shoot your questions straight away when you happen to have the questions. I wanted to tell you today where the artificial intelligence is nowadays and how it becomes an interesting tool in the creative industry. The presentation will be in English. What you will see, the slides, will be in English, and I will be speaking Polish, but
hello from me to the international people who are also perhaps viewing this right now.
I will say a few words about what happened. I've been here with you 2 years ago, if I recall well. 3 years ago. Yes, we had COVID on the way. 3 years ago. And since that time, the things sped up considerably. It also had a bit of a COVID character. The pandemic of coronavirus became the technological accelerator of sorts, and in my field, it is visible to a great extent. I will tell you more about that, what happened, and I will point your attention to certain type of algorithms that, in a widely understood art, are being employed in many wide areas. These are the so-called transformer or text generators. So I will try to go through that. I will show some of my research, and I would like to invite you to ask questions and to participate in the discussion and to present your own opinions on what happens in the world of the broadly understood artificial intelligence. I've been introduced, so I don't need to add anything to that. Yes, that's true. I'm the vice rector of the Kozminski University. I'm working in the field of artificial intelligence and in more detail in the text processing for the last 10 years. I've been leading a number of research projects in MIT right now. I hope so. In the spring, if the COVID allows me, I will go to cooperate with Harvard, where I will take care of the work of the future. And I will deal with how the work of the future will be co-shaped by artificial intelligence, how different professions will emerge as a result of the existence of the field, which changes a lot, and how the jobs that are in existence will be reskilled due to the supply of new technologies. I'm writing a lot about this field. The publication that you probably don't know about because we haven't seen each other for the last 3 years, a new one is the Collaborative Society. I wrote it with a colleague of mine, a book for MIT Press, about that the work first will become remote and then it will transform totally, and it's been published in the beginning of March of 2020, so just before the pandemic of coronavirus, and then on our very eyes, this experiment of remote work, for the good and bad of it, was exercised. So we did have a live in a very accelerated manner. Our speculations were translated into reality. We're writing quite a lot that people will be cooperating together on the net in a very various forms and in various technologies. We tried to build scripts or scenarios of the development of this future, and it occurred that it came to us in a certain forced way and quickened way due to it was forced by COVID. So this is something that absorbs me a lot. Apart from the algorithmic work, I'm really working hard right now, how we will work in the future, and how different fields of life and work, and how the knowledge-based economy will be supported by different technologies. And I will want to talk to you about that a bit more, and maybe show you a bit more. Let's start from the fact that there is a boom for the AI. The AI is developing all the time, and it became more real. If I were to tell you what happened over the last few years and what's different from what was with us a few years ago, is that a few years ago we were talking mainly about what AI could do. Now we're talking about what AI is doing, what is happening, what has been happening around us. There's a number of companies, institutions, organizations, which really not only do pilot projects on artificial intelligence, but they're scaling those technologies at their place for various reasons. The companies are looking for the new ways of understanding what the clients think and want, so they do segmentation, they do market forecasts of different types, scenario building from real estate to financial industry based on artificial intelligence models. This is happening right now with us. Of course, the public administration sector, NGOs, this is also, well, they're more careful and more reserved in using AI, usually due to the financial reasons, but also lack of data, which is a big affliction because we are in the world where data is king. Of course, it might not be so in the future, I think. When the data will saturate the world, maybe suddenly something else will become important. Maybe, for example, the algorithms people have. Right now, it seems that the algorithms are common, but some people have data and they can work on it, and the others do not have the data. In some time, I think this might reverse, where we will have plenty of data everywhere, and it will be easily accessible, and we can see the movements toward this in this direction. We can see data trust, data commons, the different companies which are freeing the data because they want to be seen in the right way, and it changes a lot. But it might be also the thing might be such that the data might be there everywhere, and companies start to think how to build algorithms to work in a different way that we're working right now. But what we can certainly see is this courage or this resolution to get to this next level of digital transformation, and that to invest in this artificial intelligence. And you can see that in all the sectors of our life, of course, at different rates of speed. Of course, the domain has been developing very strongly inside. If we look at what's happening in there, here we have a number of subdisciplines of artificial intelligence, of which some are more in momentum and some are more reserved or stopped. The key thing is the machine learning. So all the algorithms that discern artificial intelligence from computer science or IT. So algorithms which can learn by themselves. They can adapt to the changing environment. They can adapt themselves to the very complicated world that we live in, and they can also optimize their own activities and actions. They can learn to discern things better on a picture, on a photo. They can learn to communicate better with humans. Especially right now, artificial intelligence is excelling in that, and also building predictions of the future. When they get more data, when they get more data, they start to rescale what they show to us. So, for example, they tell us something about the demographics of Poland in 2050. When they get more data, they work in such a way that they can once again build this scenario in a slightly different way. So, machine learning and the classical learning based on statistics, and the most modern one, this one which is based on multi-layer deep neural networks, which are inspired by how the human brain is working. These are the two methods that are developing very strongly right now, and there's an appetite for more of and those algorithms are sort of being developed every minute. Every minute new algorithms are being developed which make something in a different way. So it's a very rich world. The second, a very wide world, is the world in which I work, and it starts to overflow on other fields of domains of human activity. I'm working in natural language processing, NLP. So I don't have too much in common with the image and the sound. However, the algorithms are used in my domain are the algorithms that change a lot of other industries and sectors. The algorithms that were created so that for the generation of text, to write something, for example, we'll be talking about that in a second, can today compose music. They can also generate images of various sorts, or they can make subtitles to images, so they can analyze what they see in the picture and translate that into text. So natural language processing is extremely important because it's very spacious. It's pretty volumetric. We have a lot of algorithms there that change a lot of other domains. And of course, here in the NLP, we also have the progress. I don't know if you're using the most modern achievements of the machine learning, things like the DeepL system. These are the systems that translate, do contextual translating. So the era of translation from one language to another in a very rough way has ended, and the context-based translation has started. So what phrase in a given context means? It doesn't mean that translators will have problems. Quite the opposite. I believe that they will get a lot of support. And for the simultaneous translation that we have today with us, those systems cannot work in this way. But for translating technical text under the supervision of a human being, absolutely yes. And this is a very interesting change that has occurred during the last 3-4 years. What else? We have very interesting new algorithms in NLP which are able to read a book and tell us what this book was about. This is actually quite an achievement of artificial intelligence. We didn't have that before. We had systems we could count how many a given phrase appeared in the text, or surrounded by other phrases, or you show the sentiment, whether these phrases have this emotional charge, and which is negative or positive. And today we have systems which can make the synthesis of a text. So when we ask them what was the magical mountain about, that of course kudos to those who can actually say what the magical mountain was about, but we will get some synopsis. We will get a chunk of a summary of what this book really is, and not only some like gibberish consisting in due to the fact that we have this sort of character, that this book is about this character, and full stop. These systems are right now able to extract important information today, and this is an extremely strongly developing domain. So in artificial intelligence, so I think my choice was good when I was selecting the right area, because it's a big umbrella. I could choose different things like robotics, for example, which is not developing very well, but I didn't do that, so I'm happy. Also, the text-to-speech and speech-to-text domain is developing very dynamically. So the understanding and interpreting the human speech, also a very noisy speech, the speech that we in everyday life, our language is pretty chaotic, and contrary to popular understanding, it's very difficult to understand what we are saying, especially if we speak with an accent. Today, AI algorithms do a very good job with understanding or interpreting what we're doing, and also using the language with the right intonation, even modulating with the voice and showing some emotion with those voice if we wish that. Those sectors go hand in hand, and if we're talking about a bot or online assistant, it's a solution of text-to-speech which translates text to the binary code, and also the NLP, the natural language processing algorithm, which is understanding not only how to translate things to code, but what was being said. So these two areas have been developing very dynamically, and they're in a very good spot today. Another field which is developing very, very nicely is the machine vision, and here we've got image recognition, and we've got machine vision, so generation of the images, so all the deep fakes. you can really sort of it's really incredible. 3 weeks ago I've read that there is a system now that deepfakes any person, and you can use it without coding. So in a way you can deepfake without any programming skills whatsoever any person and put them in any environment, in any context. And these deepfakes are acting on a pretty high level. So these neural networks are generating some very realistic images. So you can tell that it's a deepfake only with the help of another AI, not through a human eye. So it's developing very dynamically, but for both good and bad, and it's pretty controversial too. Another a domain that has not been developing, and of course you can challenge me and you can say that I'm not right, is the robotics. Robotics is a very difficult domain of artificial intelligence. It's very demanding. I know that Elon Musk recently showed the Tesla bot and said that he will be creating a humanoid robots, and in a year he will show a prototype. Of course, it's an interesting announcement, but building robotic system is extremely difficult, requires a lot of attempts of optimization of each single system. It's not the same as software, which is scalable. This is hardware. These are physical systems, and they are very difficult to execute. So it did not. The AI in robotics did not launch yet. I think the future is in robotics. It will be very interesting if this happened, if this switch from software and coding to hardware, which is able to move around our world and do it effectively and do something for us. So, for example, in COVID, there was attempts to make intervention robotics. The robotics would transfer medicine to different places where the quarantine is to serve patients. Well, it wasn't on a very high level yet, but I believe that in some time this will be changing. If that will be followed by investments of such giants as Tesla, then yes, that could be interesting. Elon Musk and his turn to robotics, we could talk on end about that, because I don't know if you've heard about that or if you've seen that. Musk wants to build small robots, smaller than a grown-up person, which will be weighing at 57 kilograms maximum, and they will not be able to catch up with a human being, but they will be easy to disarm, but they are to assist, they are to carry heavy equipment, and that could be useful, carry boxes under the command of humans and perform some physical, difficult, not really nice jobs for humans. A part of that job, especially in terms of its engine of knowledge and the ability of recognizing the surroundings, is of course borrowed from autonomous car, Tesla's autonomous car. And because autonomous car cannot sort of be launched really, because legal regulations prevent it from being launched economically around the world, Musk decided that this artificial intelligence, which has been developed and fed, it has to be used somewhere. And now he's talking about all those physical robots. So we will see. This might be another marker of a next big quantum leap, and soon we will have physical machines with human-like traits, with screens instead of faces, and they will communicate something to us. If this will be like Tesla, then we can expect that some systems like that in the world will spill around the world. Robotics is a big question mark. If I were to summarize what's happening in my domain, these are the domains that are developing dynamically or are already developed, and a lot is happening in terms of artificial intelligence. And of course, we have within the machine learning, as I said, we also have certain changes, or rather growing ambitions. Here you've got examples of the use of machine learning algorithms. Of course, each one of us has sort of uses them on every day, unless you don't use a smartphone and you're technological Luddite, then you do not use artificial intelligence. But if you do, then you use them, because both the weather forecast and online shopping, anything like that. It's full of machine learning algorithms, the predictive algorithms, just like in case of weather, or those that sort certain content or products for sale. So there's a lot of that. We have algorithms which are pretty classical, in which the business is pretty well versed, because they are well understood and they are well supervised, just like classification and regression. These are the classical algorithms which we today call the machine learning algorithms, but you can learn them during the statistics classes. They used to be considered a part of the statistics. Right now they fell under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. And here everything that relates to simple predictions, what will happen in the nearest future, whereas in somebody's Instagram account, their followers will grow based on the data or historical data that we have at our disposal, or maybe some simple medical diagnostics, whether we see something on the picture that is sort of should make us worry or not. The classification of simple images, these are the classical algorithms, and they are very well embedded already in the business. Of course, our ambitions grow and they are bigger, and the artificial intelligence has new algorithms, as I said. So we also have unsupervised learning algorithm, and here it's not the human being who's the architect of the whole concept and formulating the questions which are to be answered by the algorithm, but algorithm is doing things by themselves. So, for example, in a classification and regression, I give the target value, or I'm saying, looking at that data, what will be the situation in Poland in 2050 when it comes to demographics? The algorithm shows that to me. I ask a clear question, like whether the number of young people will grow in that time or not, and the algorithm answers that. I give them the data, I give the algorithm the data, and I'm the supervisor of the whole process. In the unsupervised learning algorithm, I throw the data at the algorithm, and the algorithm by itself has to structure them in a way and has to tell them whatever is there any pattern in the data. Can it be clustered, for example? For example, if I throw a lot of data at the algorithms, I know that in the film sector this happens a lot when it comes to segmentation of who watches the content or who will be watching the content in the future. This segmentation can be very general, but it also can be very detailed. So you can show correlations between various things. For example, Netflix is interested in that. Also, other streaming platforms, they have recommendation systems, also quite often based on the unsupervised learning, for example, which on one hand recommend to us, the viewers, various content based on our preferences, but also the preferences of other people who were considered by the algorithm to be similar to us. And this is the work of unsupervised learning system. The system came up with the idea that based on some of my traits, I'm similar to a person A, B, or C, and because A, B, and C watch certain content, then I should be also interested in that. On the other hand, you can say that a similar algorithm can be used to make a very granular segmentation of people who prefer certain content, watch certain content, or buy something. So here we've got visualization of big data sets, targeted marketing, all those more modern algorithms of unsupervised learning or self-supervising, the so-called supervised learning. It's not the human who's supervising, it's the algorithm that's supervising itself, showing to the human being, what they are doing, so that we know more or less what's happening. So this is this pool of very promising algorithms. Of course, this recommendation is not perfect today. It's not complete yet, because the majority of us would want more. I think there is a fantastic professor, a very interesting guy who's working with recommendation algorithms. His name is Michael Jordan, like an NBA player. That's his big bad luck in life. But he's doing a lot of interesting stuff. When it comes to recommendation, he says we are still at a very, very dull place. People do not yet get what they're looking for, because quite often they cannot name what they are looking for, and we are not able to algorithmize it. And it is also such that people are not surprised by those algorithms, and they want to be surprised. They would want to find some weird, interesting products they do not expect, but in a way, some interesting for them, but breaking their routines. So there are no such systems yet. So, and maybe this branch of unsupervised learning will not be able to provide us with algorithms like that. Quite possibly, we'll need to reach to the reinforcement learning, which is at the bottom of this slide, the most advanced, most modern algorithms, which are enfant terrible of our domain, because you cannot harness them. They are multi-layer neural networks which are fed with a huge input. They get a huge volume of data to process, and these are the algorithms in which we are just architects of a general scheme, and the learning is on the side of the algorithm. It processes the data by itself as it thinks in a way that it should be done, and it learns basing on the penalties and awards, and basing on it just shows us the result, and basically we give it the awards and penalties, and this is the way it learns. These are the algorithms which are deep. They are inexplicable to us. They are not non-transparent to us. They are not clear to us. But when it comes to the most interesting tools and tasks for the artificial intelligence, which is also a reflection of what human being does, like talking, for example, communication with another person, generating text, content, generating, recognizing images. This is where those algorithms work the best, and they also work best with strategic games, getting from the logical thinking according to certain rules in a world of a video game, and discerning or recognizing what the enemy would do. They do everything like that better than the classical algorithm. They are really promising, but they are black boxes, so we do not really understand what they're doing, and this is unfortunately subject to certain ethical defect. I don't know how it will develop in the future. Probably we'll be talking about that a bit more, but it is a very difficult domain. On the other hand, I can see already and I can hear that such networks or such platforms as Alibaba taking this risk on their shoulders, because it is risk. Using algorithms you do not understand is a big risk. Alibaba wants to make recommendations based on the most modern, the state-of-the-art reinforcement learnings, not the supervised, which are much clearer and easier to correct in a way. So a lot is happening. There are plenty of interesting things going on, and when it comes to trends that I might enumerate, which are also interesting in the artificial intelligence, one of them, maybe you can see it here. I don't know if we're dealing here with the aces of the visual world, so probably this will not make a lot of impression on you, but this is not a live person, it's a generated character, and probably you can see that to some extent, but the level of generation of this image, I think, is different from what we've seen before. This company is called Soul Machine. It wants to create synthetic characters that will make an emotional contact with a person, of course, with live people, and then you can sell it successfully on many fields. There's no doubt about that. There are more projects like that appearing on the market. Right now we have, it wasn't possible a few years ago. Right now we have enough computing power. It's possible to generate such characters right now, and it's interesting. The question is how long such a simulation can last, and the system of language processing will not fail at some point. Whether it's possible for such a robot, which is shown at such a high level, would it be possible for them to communicate effectively with a human being? So these are the things that are happening. On the other hand, there's the question about data. This is the fundamental question that in many sectors has been asked. Where will I get the data to use or create such complicated systems? Right now, we have those concepts of data trusts. Especially Americans and Canadians are pulling strongly in that way. I'm in a number of associations which use that to the creation of such trusts by various conglomerates in individual industries to create a joint data pool and to to use this data, share this data pool for a given goal or target, and to achieve certain goal, and then to close it. These are like interesting things that are happening in Europe, and there's a lot of problems both in Europe and in the United States to relate to, for example, to privacy. What are the policies about that? China have it differently, so they have a huge access to data. In some fields you can see that they have the leading role when it comes to artificial intelligence. However, I believe that here we have a new paradigm being forged of how the data should be used, which will allow also the smaller players to use the artificial intelligence, even the most advanced one. AI is not also alone in the void. I don't want to show you that this is one leading domain. Of course, AI is a general purpose technology. It is just like steam engine. It is like internet. So it is the technology of this scale. The question remains whether it will be accepted in the mainstream as such, but it is a technology of such potential. Of course, it does not work in a void. We have a number of some other interesting technologies which are also entering the start interactions with the AI. If you think about IoT, about the sensors which supply the lifetime data, it's also a game changer for the artificial intelligence. If I, with my students, I'm working all the time on historical data, and we're doing predictions, and I say, let's do prepare a prediction of income portfolio in Poland for this age group, for this economic group. Tell me how much those people will earn in 5 years' time. So we're basing on historical data. We extract that data from somewhere, but if we had live data at our hands, our model would change a lot. If you want to make an artificial intelligence that would manage traffic in Warsaw and Kraków, it will be working differently when we have access only to historical data, even if it's updated, and it would work differently if we have access to live data. That would be a totally different system. So that is a very interesting thing, this IoT interaction between IoT and AI. And another thing that I want to talk about is another technology is blockchain, a very important unused potential. You can see it mainly used in crypto money, but it is also a protocol of communication which can allow for very decentralized but at the same time very transparent access to human interactions, like selling, buying, but also voting in democracy. Its potential is huge, and it's possible to connect it to artificial intelligence. It is very interesting how this whole ecosystem is developing. We have 5G. I've heard that Chinese have 6G, so this connectivity, this broadband for data transfer is extremely important. This is also a very interesting moment when all those technologies, you can see how they start to click together. It's very interesting. And another trend, I will try to show it to you in a while, which is very interesting, is simplification. Simplification in AI, which does not consist in that the domain becomes simpler. That's not true. Quite the opposite. It starts to grow in complexity. But the use of artificial intelligence for the people who have nothing to do with this technology, with this domain, should become easier. If the AI is supposed to follow the steps of internet, it has to become accessible as domain. Whether it's a historian or a biologist or a filmmaker, they all should be able to have access to various tools for their own, which would be useful for their own professional needs. So artificial intelligence should have a user-friendly interface. You cannot expect from everybody to learn programming, but the AI will be programming itself too. So code writing is not something that people should be able to do. They should be able to supervise it, unless not write code unless you like it. For example, I don't like writing code, and it's really I don't enjoy it, and I really enjoy the idea that I will be only required to required
sprawia to
only to
przyjemność.
supervise it and not do it.
Więc
So
co do zasady chodzi o to,
no
żeby
offense
oni
to all
mogli
those who like to write
wymagać
codes.
tego typu skilli. To
So
znaczy,
the
gdzieś tam uważam, że
the drive
każdemu
is
będzie
towards not
potrzebny
requiring people to have those skills.
onboarding w tym
Everybody
świecie
will need
sztucznej
an
inteligencji.
onboarding
Z
for
grubsza
the
ludzie powinni
AI
rozumieć,
world.
o
The
co
people
chodzi z tą
should be able to
technologią, jak z niej
understand
korzystać.
what this technology is about and how to use it
Natomiast,
effectively.
taka dogłębna
However,
wiedza nie
the
powinna być
in-depth
potrzebna,
knowledge should
a z
not
drugiej
be
strony,
necessary.
no,
On the
wydaje
other
mi się,
hand,
że jest
I
oczekiwanie
believe
w
that
bardzo
there is
wielu
a
sektorach, żeby
sort of
swobodnie korzystać z
expectations
sztucznej
in many
inteligencji.
sectors
Zaraz
that
pokażę,
people
jak
should
to
be quite
można
well versed in
zrobić.
artificial intelligence, and I will show you in a
Tutaj
while
może
how to
niewiele
do
widać
it.
na tym slajdzie,
You can
ale w
see
zasadzie
much
chodzi
on this
tylko o to,
slide,
żeby
but
pokazać, jak
here I
dużo
just wanted to
wszystkiego
show
jest.
how much
Bo
of
jak państwo
everything
na to
is there.
spojrzą, to
If you
widzicie
look at
państwo,
this,
że
you can
mamy
see that
różną
we
sztuczną
have various
inteligencję dla
types of
sektora
artificial
edukacyjnego,
intelligence for the
inną zupełnie dla
educational
logistyki,
industry, for the
inną dla
education, for
sektora
logistics,
prawnego,
for the
jeszcze
legal
inną
industry,
dla finansów,
another for finance,
i jeszcze inną
and
dla
a
na
different
przykład
one
rolnictwa,
for
że tu przybywa
agriculture, for
bardzo
example. A
rozmaitych
lot of that,
rozwiązań
there
technologicznych
are
i tam
plenty
się
of
robi
new
po prostu
solutions
obrazku
in
gęsto.
each one of them,
Czyli
and
raczej
this
niż
becomes very
jedna
dense.
sztuczna
So apart from
inteligencja,
one
mamy do czynienia
artificial
wraz z
intelligence,
sytuacją,
right now we have a situation
wiele
where we have a
sztucznych
number of
inteligencji
artificial
i one
intelligences,
obsługują
and they
różne
service
dziedziny
various
problemy
domains and
domenowe.
problems.
Tak, czyli i tak samo w jednej dużej organizacji
So
będzie działać inny
similarly,
system
in
do
one big
marketingu, a
organization,
zupełnie
we'll have a
inny
different
system
system
do
for marketing
HR-u,
and a
na
different
przykład,
one
do
for
human
HR.
resources. I to jest faktycznie,
And
o świetnie, dzięki
oh,
bardzo.
thank you. That is much better.
Teraz widzicie lepiej, chociaż to naprawdę nie ma w sumie
I
znaczenia.
mean, now we
Bardziej
can
chodzi
see
o
it
to,
more
żeby
clearly, but
pokazać,
it
że
may,
ten
I mean,
stack
it doesn't matter.
technologiczny jest bardzo duży
It's just to show you how
i,
big
że
the
się rozwija.
technological stack is right now
To
and
jest
that
też
it's
ciekawe,
developing.
tak, nie
And
wiem,
it's
czy
also,
wszystkich interesuje,
I don't know
ale
if it's of
na
interest to
planie
everybody, but on the
można powiedzieć,
at the
geopolitycznym jest to
geopolitical
ciekawe,
level,
ponieważ,
it's also
ja
extremely
myślę, że wielu z
interesting
nas
because I think that
funkcjonuje
many
w
of us
takim świecie, w którym
functions
się wydaje,
in a
że
world where we believe
dostawcami
that
tych
the
najnowszych
suppliers of the
technologii jest 5 w
new
jednym
technologies are
świecie,
5
że to
companies
jest
in the
GAFA.
world.
I tak pewnie
That is
jest.
GAFA.
Znaczy, w dużym stopniu tak jest, że te największe
And it might be so that the biggest one, the Google, Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, are the suppliers of artificial intelligence, but to all those domain problems, like agricultural AI, you get small companies appear and institutions appearing which see their niche in there, and of course distort that niche in a very interesting niche. They bring this niche to a next level, and here we've got we see a lot of companies that are being bought out by the big corporations, and sometimes they don't, and they introduce a lot of pluralism in the world of artificial intelligence, which is needed and at least for me is desirable. A lot is happening, and I think you can summarize that with the general statement. We've touched upon that 3 years ago, I believe, and every year I do this summary. Where are we with artificial intelligence? Summer or winter? The question whether it's winter or summer, it's very binary. If it's a winter, nothing works, nobody likes artificial intelligence, nobody wants to invest in artificial intelligence. If we have summer, it's great, we have a beautiful time, everybody's financing, everybody's interested and believes in that artificial intelligence. Summer, right now it seems that we have more of a summer than a winter. If we think about it, where we are exactly, we are at the moment of AI hype. And quite interestingly, it does not pass. I had this discussions with a number of people last year who said, oh, it's going to validate, and people will stop believing that artificial intelligence. There will be a lot of fake AI and some cons, and some of those investment will fail. Well, that doesn't seem so. It seems that we get more and more investment, and we're clearly in the summer period. But some people say that we are not even in the summer, that we're in the spring of artificial intelligence, and the summer is just coming to us. And this might be a stormy summer. So it might not be easy, it might be turbulent, but the winter, the period of cutting off from the funds and the technology being cast away, this is something that nobody expects right now. And I believe that we are in the hot period for the artificial intelligence. And of course, this translates to individual domains. We have a very interesting projects. I just wanted to show you a few from different sectors which have this potential for scaling. This is quite interesting. I don't know if you know it. This is a project which is called Blue Dot, which deals with an early recognition of a budding epidemic. And it worked pretty well. In 2019, in the beginning of November, that it flagged that something is happening in Wuhan before WHO said that something fishy is going on there and there's some epidemics and they have to look at that. It also worked very well for the Zika and dengue disease in Africa, pandemic in Africa. It is also a system of not processing medical data, but the text. It works in 65 languages and dialects. And in those 65 dialects and languages, it processes data from the web, from social media, from official reports. It scraps the web from the medical reports, etc. Then it contextualizes that and it gets all the information. It's trained to find early phases of contagious diseases in various parts of the world. It's also pretty interesting because I remember that in 2020 in November there was information or questions, if this AI is so powerful, why doesn't it help with COVID? Well, it could. It cannot really help in modeling pandemics as such in different places of the world, showing those scripts, scenarios in a very precise way. Although you have this possibility, but it's a hit and miss thing. Today we do not have such rich models, we do not have such access to data for those models to be 100% correct, but early definition or early revealing or getting like those weak signals from the world, this is a totally different matter, and here the artificial intelligence can be really helpful. How do you think? What do you think? Who used that system? But only two countries use that system, Canada and USA. The rest of the world was totally oblivious. Nobody got interested in that. EU wasn't interested in that.
Moje pytanie było takie,
My question
że
is,
ta sztuczna inteligencja wyłapuje rzeczy z sieci, czyli
it scrubs the web, so the countries which have access to the internet, it can get the information from those countries. If we have a underdeveloped country, then the information will also be more sort of falling behind. Well, that's true, of course. These are data from the web, but this is also this distribution is pretty weird. For example, Africa is saturated with smartphones. You've got a lot of information, also text-based information, which flows from smartphones. But it is not so that this social media landscape is so occupied as in China, where everybody is working through one application, so this modeling is much easier. Yes, this will be sort of the pattern will be different in different countries, and it's much easier, for example, to detect something in China because people are sitting on smartphones all the time. Well, access to computers in Africa in many places is limited, but also in Africa, in many countries, smartphone is a thing you have two or three pieces of, even really low-income countries. So in this respect, I believe there is a potential for those systems. Of course, it will be best from the point of view of medical experts, not maybe privacy, is that sort of get sensors everywhere and to collect all sorts of information, not only text-based, because the text is only a signal that something might happen, but it does not have to. It's not like a hard medical data. It's a text data which contextualize that people start to get sick with a certain disease in some countries, and that influences their behaviors. So in the context of that system, this data comes from the sort of listening to communicators, also eavesdropping, yes, from the mining of data which is accessible on the web. Although I must say that, but publicly accessible, yes, these are declarative data. They are declarative data, so data like the hospital every day has an obligation to make press releases about how many people were accepted to the hospital. Also in China, the things are very differently. There a lot of data is reported. There are no private data in China too, so getting information from China is much easier. But it's not spying of private conversations. It's getting the published data. Even from such data, interestingly, you can get some patterns. Of course, this system in the future will have situations where it will flag something that is not the sort of the source of any, or not the beginning of the of any disease. It might be oversensitive. It might be with this, like in the fairy tale of the boy who cried wolf, where it will flag things that would not happen, and so people will stop respond to it. But the creators of this system state that this is not the data harvesting of the private data, it's just declarative data harvesting, and that for flagging early warnings is enough. It's enough to flag early warnings of the disease, but not to show the scale. Talking about the privacy issues, in the beginning you said that the NGOs and governments suffer from lack of data that could be used for teaching the artificial intelligence. However, the commercial sector does not have that problem. I understand that here the data comes from the massive spying of internet users. Yes, of course, to which we give consent every time whenever you use an application on social media, because if you do not agree, you will have a more difficult form of using social media. So every time you download, I don't know, Apple right now, Apple will have access to reading our photos that we have in the cloud. And it refers to in order to look for the pedophile related images on the device. I've heard that they want to stop it at the cloud level. Of course, I'm not saying that I can't exclude a case where this limit could be shifted, this border could be shifted. Of course, and also when we download anything to our smartphone, we give a consent. So in a messenger or anywhere else, the location data, the system turns on the microphone to record 3 or 4 seconds or 5 seconds of our voice, and if it catches some information, then we get information. But the goal is not just to give us ads, but also shaping the AI system so that they better discern what we say. This is what this process of teaching is about. Yes, but absolutely, you're absolutely right. I don't know if no governments have access to data. I have no doubt that there are governments which have huge access to data. But when I'm talking about the Polish public sector, quite often this data is not described with metadata, and they're very low quality. That's another issue. What sort of data is that? Is it a quality data? Is it full of gaps data, or are they structured, or they're non-structured? What is the policy of collecting that data and managing that data? So I think that here there will be a lot of differences between the countries. So there are countries which have very mature policy, and of course it does not need to be pro-citizen, but it is a policy of data harvesting or data collecting, and there are also countries which have been resting on laurels for a very long time, and they do not have access to good data, even to later provide pro-citizen services, which could be based on that data. Because some of us don't really want to go with everything to the municipal office and do everything there, but we would love to use a digital twin or assistant for many things. So I believe that here we've got big discrepancies between from country to country. Okay, let's move on, and then we can. We're entering this whole domain that we were supposed to talk about, AI ethics. I don't know if you ever had a chance. If you never did that, I encourage you to take that torture to make a test on Moral Machine MIT EDU. It's a test from several years ago. It still didn't lose its validity, where we select an optimal choice in the face of ethical dilemma for an autonomous car, whether the car should steer away from, like, for example, to not to hit the child, but to hit an old person. This test was not to build the ethics for the car in the future, because I think that the road to autonomous car is very, very long and bumpy, and the car industry will be implementing solutions that would support drivers on the road and will not substitute them, because there's a question of liability if anything happens. Or like in the autonomous car in Arizona got on the road and killed a woman. Everybody suddenly realized what sort of a problem it is. What happens when algorithmic system makes a decision about human life, because they make a mistake with identifying someone, for example. This could happen to a human being too, but at least then we know how to legally behave. And in here we have a radically more complex situation. It is worth doing this test because it's also very interesting from the perspective not of implementing it directly in the future, but to see the scale of the problem related with the fact that algorithms make decisions in different situations. We are talking about privacy. It's one of the dimensions of moral ethics, which data can be used and how this data should be used. And the second thing is which decisions the AI should make in the future on the credit risk, on judicial matters. So, for example, optimizing judicial proceedings or like medical diagnostics. AI can be there, but do we want it to be there really? And if so, what are the rules for it being there? This is quite a serious problem. The test takes like for some people it is like 13 cases, or are really hardcore. For some people it's just 30 minutes. It's just a question of who has a social value of sorts. It's an absolutely devilish solution, but I think it opens your eyes to how we would want to devise the future with such algorithms. This is the case. You make a decision whether to kill someone or to sacrifice yourself. And you have like 13 dilemmas like that shown in this, are presented in this test. That's one pool of problems. The other pool of issues is the black box dilemma, is that everything that happens with inexplainable algorithms we do not understand. In case of image processing or recognizing algorithm, that's a bit simpler because we can follow the route of the algorithm, how it descends, whether it's a tortoise or a mouse on the image. It's something we can understand in a way. However, if deep neural network algorithm process numerical data, it's much more difficult. So, for example, we have a deep learning algorithm makes a decision whether to approve a mortgage for someone or not, or a loan. We cannot tell why, and it is also difficult from the legal perspective and moral expenses. So explainability of AI is a thing that keeps people sleepless at night, because the business really drives towards using these AI solutions because they're extremely better than anything else we have. But on the other hand, there is a lack of legitimization of those solutions because we do not know how to ask them why they made those decisions. And this is a problem, a big problem. And if I was talking about that 3 years ago, I must tell you that this explainability, because right now it's solved or treated in such a way that we are dealing with systems on which you superimpose another parallel AI. So you have AI which simplifies the decision process of the first one for the human being, and that's the best solutions we have right now. Hello. What is the impact on the AI of vaccinations? What do you mean? Well, there are many studies which, you collect the information with help of this application from public data, but counting the elements that are being detected by the systems, I can see that it's a very similar direction, that it will be used. it might be used maybe for the identification that somebody is vaccinated or not. From your perspective, vaccines will impact or will be used by AI, are used by the people to check if somebody with the AI. Is that what you mean? Is AI able to use those vaccines somehow to check that someone has this in the organism or not? That's a question for the people who are modeling in that space. To what extent anything like that is doable? I don't understand your question. Because artificial intelligence can do various things. Of course, it can correlate different symptoms with whether somebody was vaccinated or not. You could do prediction of how many antibodies somebody have basing on what are their general health condition, for how long the vaccination would work. And of course, these things will be done because you can do it, you can check it once with a human being, but you can do it in longer perspectives. You can do a modeling which would tell us to what extent this protection is works in different groups or clusters, as we prefer to with a certain accuracy. It will never be 100%, but there will be some accuracy. So yes, you can ask a lot of questions to such models. However, I don't know if such projects are ready right now. I think with all probability there will be such projects. They will be realized because medical sector is a sector that changed the most during the COVID pandemic, and it got technologized the most. Even though we see the strike of doctors, and we can see how underinvested medical industry is in Poland, and we have a series of problems. But looking at it globally, the medical sector is the one which during the pandemic transformed to the greatest extent, started from telemedical solutions or remote medical solutions to the such solutions that in London the bots are making the queues of patients and sending them to individual specialists. If we look at the remote online medical recommendations we have in Poland, you can see that it's moving. So MedTech got the biggest kick out of that. They can also have different solutions like surveillance, for example. I wanted to come back to the place we are at to talk more about creative industries. I have a question related to the fact that in technology there are such periods. In the beginning, usually it's extremely complicated, then it simplifies. I'm sort of referring back to the analog. Let me refer to the analog era of filming. In the beginning, we had like a throng of technicians to service and to operate the camera and to develop a film. Technicolor required some special sensors for temperatures, etc., etc. At the end of that period, just before the appearance of the digital cinema, it was enough to have one person to record just the image. I'm talking about the image now. Then happened something, then appeared something that changed the whole philosophy of filmmaking. You could imagine that, of course, making it a bit trivial, that the DOP is a guy with a mirror who's running around and reflecting reality one-to-one. Right now, due to the fact with the appearance of the whole generation of graphic processing applications, that's what we want to achieve, especially in genre films, which you have plenty of, because the audience which watches more and more, they are raised on CGI, on video games, and they require more processing of the image. I'm quite often tell my students that instead of studying at the film school, where they will not learn much on technology, they should go to the coding class in the technical university, because they will be able to do something that other people would not be able to do. Instead of using some plugins, some graphic software, they would be able to do their own. The problem is, and that's what you also tackled in your lecture a moment ago, talking about the simplification. Will artificial intelligence, shouldn't artificial intelligence, and it does not apply only to the film, but in general, shouldn't it also be harnessed more and more in easing the use of computer software, which get more and more complicated? Like we have a program like, for example, Unreal 5 used for video game. It's the 5th generation software, and working on Unreal 5 in order to learn this tool, to learn this application, it needs months or years of investing your time to be well versed in that, and we sort of bring it down to some very basic, some very simple effects, which we can see at the end. This direction of work of artificial intelligence that shouldn't AI work in such a way to make complicated things simple, because the final effect is simple, and we shouldn't, I understand, we shouldn't do like a million of actions and learn a lot to make simple things. I see a great role of AI in here, and there are very few such programs that would, or thinking in this direction, to harness AI in this. Thank you very much for this question. It's a very good question, and it sort of brings me to the last motive that I promised you I will tackle in the context of working and cooperation. Here, sort of referring to the question where it should simplify. Yes, it should simplify. It should do many things instead of us and for us. AI should assist us. AI should be a very deep, a very serious assisting technology. What you are seeing right now is GPT-3. It's a transformer. It's a strange thing for a name for cinematic people. But we have algorithms which are called transformers. They're used for generating a text, but not only. Here you've got the GPT-3 transformer, OpenAI company, at some point established by Elon Musk himself. Then Elon Musk left that company. He started to work with something else because he doesn't like to do one thing for a very long time. So at some point he left it alone, and then it sort of took off, and it started to do very interesting things. First, they prepared GPT-2 transformer 2 years ago, which was supposed to complete sentences started by humans. A human being starts to start a phrase, and the system is to add a coherent ending of the phrase of that short text. So model completion. This is what this algorithm specialized in. This is not the only system of that kind. It worked very well, but as you can see probably in your Gmail, when you start to write, especially in English, when you start some phrases in your email to somebody, then the system tries to give you hints. It's a predictive system. You say best, so maybe it will be it adds best regards or best wishes, because that's the end of the mail. So the convention is so that at the end you write best regards, best wishes. It gives you certain options, or it analyzes what we wrote about and suggests us the title of the return message, or starts a phrase for us. It works in a very similar way. The Google system, the GPT-2 works even better. It analyzes on a high contextual level. It analyzes the phrase and the network. Its access to information, of course, it's biased and noisy, but it has an information network where we write things, and it comes up with what should be the next word after the one that has been said or stated, and it optimizes this. What am I showing this? Because this is like a humongous thing. GPT-3 network has 175 billion parameters. It's a huge language model. It takes into account every time at a maximum 175 billion possibilities of what this phrase could mean. So this is no joke, this system. What does it do apart from completing the phrases, or it can do such interesting things? It can fake some people. It can learn on the phrasing of some people, and becomes an ideal deep fake. Right now Donald is not on Twitter anymore, so there's no more fun with Trump, but you could do that in the past. But what the system also does, its core is understanding the commands made in natural language, and this refers very much to your question, because if I can tell to the system,
zarecytuj mi pierwsze
please
prawa robotyki.
cite me the
Nie będę
first
mówić, że chodzi mi o
rules of
Asimova
robotics, and I will not
książki
talk
i
about
tak dalej.
Asimov, about the book,
Wrzucam
etc.
mu
I'm
przestrzeń,
throwing it
jakąś
like
komendę,
towards him a
a on
command,
tą
and
komendę naprawdę
and this
wysoko
system
kontekstowo
in a
przetwarza,
very
zwraca mi
high
wyniki,
contextually
to jest adekwatne.
processes
On może
and
dla mnie
gives me the
zrobić
right
jeszcze
answer.
kilka
It
innych
can do
rzeczy.
a number of
Na
other
przykład
things for
może
me.
coś dla mnie
For example,
zaprogramować.
it
To
can
się dzieje.
program
To
things
znaczy
for me.
takie systemy
So, for
jak
example, the
GPT-3,
systems like GPT-3,
T5, BERT, te wszystkie
T5,
transformery
BERT, all
językowe.
those language
Albo
transformers,
DALL-E. To
or
DALL-E to
DALL-E.
jest najnowszy system
DALL-E
OpenAI, który
is the state of the
koreluje
art
obrazy z tekstem.
AI
Chociażby właśnie tym
system
się
which
kieruje.
correlates
Te
images with
systemy mogą
the
coś
text. So
zaprogramować.
these
Ja mogę
systems can
powiedzieć na
program
przykład,
something for me. For
zrób
example,
mi
I say,
dane, bazę danych w
prepare
Excelu,
me a
albo,
database in Excel,
zaprogramuj mi coś
or
w JavaScriptie,
program something in
albo zaprogramuj mi
JavaScript,
coś
or
w Pythonie.
program
Napisz
something
mi
in
kod
Python. Write a
pythonowski
Python
do
code
komendy, która
for
będzie
the command
przeszukywała mi
that
bazę
will
danych.
search the
Zrób to dla
database.
mnie.
Do it for
Ja
me.
to wyrażam w języku
And I
naturalnym,
express
ten
that in
system to
natural
zapomina.
language, and
Możecie
the system
sprawdzić
does it
takie
for me.
coś, co się nazywa
You can check it.
AI-21
It's called,
Labs,
you can
w
check
tych laboratoriach.
AI-21 Labs.
AI-21 Labs to też jest
This is
transformer
also
językowy.
a
Wchodzi
language
się za
transformer.
free.
You enter for
Można
free,
kazać mu
and you
różne rzeczy
can
robić.
make
Tam
it
może być
do various
masa
things.
zadań
You can have
programowanych.
like
Możemy mu kazać napisać
a
haiku,
huge number
wierszyk,
of
jakieś głupotki, takie
tasks that they can
różne
do. You can ask
będzie
them to
robił,
write a poem,
ale
a
możemy mu
haiku,
też kazać
but
coś
you can ask them,
programować właśnie dla
ask the
nas.
system
I
to
po
program
prostu
something
na
for us.
waszych oczach
And
będą
on
się
your very
rozwijały
eyes, you will
linijki
see
kodu,
like the lines of code developing,
które będą pracą wykonaną
which will be a
przez ten
work
algorytm na
done by this
waszą,
algorithm
komendę
for
wyrażoną w
on your
języku
command,
Więc
expressed in
mówiłam o
natural
uproszczeniu,
language.
to o
So
tym
when I
mówiłam
was talking
właśnie,
about
że takie rzeczy
simplification, I was talking
rzeczywiście
about
się
that.
dzieją.
This is
Uważam, że
what's
takich
happening right now,
programów
and I
właśnie dlatego te
feel that
generatory tekstu są
that's
takie
why those
ważne,
text
bo takie
generators are
programy można
increasingly
włożyć jako
important because
fundament dla
you can
innych
put it
programów.
as a
To znaczy,
foundation
do
for
innych zadań
other software, for
można
other
mieć
programs.
bramy,
You
czy
can have a
gateway w postaci
gateway
właśnie
to
takiego
other
systemu,
tasks
któremu
in the
się
form
każe
of a
robić
system
różne rzeczy z
that
innymi
you
systemami.
tell to do
Tak.
things with other systems.
Czyli taki
So-
to GPT-3,
so GPT-3
ewentualnie w późniejszym
No.
And
jakby
in the
rozwoju,
later,
to jest
its later
na przykład szansa, żeby
development,
móc
there is a
użyć
chance
sztucznej
to
inteligencji do ogólnej
use AI
produkcji,
for
czyli
general
przy
production.
tworzeniu scenariusza,
So when
przy
you're
na
creating a
przykład,
script,
przy na przykład stworzonym
For
scenariuszu
example, you
wrzucić
create a
do
script,
sztucznej
you put it
inteligencji
in,
informację, czy na pewno-
use,
czy to dobrze
upload
brzmi, czy ktoś coś
to
takiego
artificial
wymyślił, albo
intelligence if it
przy
works well,
pomocy
and or if
na
somebody
bazie
else
storyboardu,
come up
czy
with
na
something
przykład
like that,
sztuczna
or based
inteligencja
on
byłaby na
storyboard,
przykład w stanie
will
wygenerować
artificial intelligence
albo
will be
spróbować
able
wygenerować,
to
jak
generate
mogłyby dane
what,
ujęcia albo
how
dane
given
mniej
shots
więcej wyglądać,
should
żeby
look
potem
like, so that
same-
later it
Tak.
could
same
help
menu zdjęciowe
with
i żeby
on the
na
shooting
przykład
scene, during the
zwizualizować
shooting
albo zaproponować różne
shooting
rozwiązania
days,
w zależności
or
od tego, jakie
suggest
dane
different
podamy.
solutions depending on the
Odpowiedzi
data
na
we
wszystkie
provide.
twoje
Yes,
pytania brzmią
answer.
tak.
The
Wydaje
answers
mi
to
się,
all
że
your
tak,
questions
że
are
jak
yes.
najbardziej idzie to w tą stronę.
This
To
is the
znaczy,
direction
to, co
it
powiedziałeś o
goes.
scenariuszach,
What you
to
said
znaczy,
about
jakbyś
script,
sobie
so
odpalił
if
to
you
AI-21 Labs,
used A21 Labs, you
zobaczysz,
can see there,
nie tego typu zastosowania.
not
My
this
na
sort of
przykład,
use.
nie wiem, czy tutaj mam, bo
I don't know if I have it here.
to są różne
These are
tematy,
those
tak?
different
GPT-3,
names. GPT-3,
em,
DALL-E, but
T5, w ogóle, żeby było
T5.
śmiesznie, jeszcze
And
powiem, że jest też GPT-J, czyli
funnily, and there's also
open-source'owa
GPT-J,
wersja,
the open source
GPT-3,
version of
czyli bezpłatna,
GPT-3,
nie
so
trzeba
free of
czekać
charge.
na żadnej
You don't have to
wait
wait
liście, tylko
on
można
any
po
wait
prostu
list.
sobie
You can
zaimplementować
just
open source'owy
implement the
model,
open source
jakby
model
w pełni bezpłatny for free, też
fully
nie
for
bawić,
free
ale to
and have
wymaga
fun with it, but
trochę
this
umiejętności
requires a bit of a
programistycznych.
higher level
Bo
of
w tych-
of
w tych
coding
innych nic.
skills.
Znaczy jakby
In those,
po prostu
no.
to jest tak jak
I mean, this is a
korzystanie z
trade-off
social
because
media.
in
Piszę
here
wam
it's
coś,
like
co
using
chciała
social
i
media. I
system
write
mi to
something that I
wypływa, bo
would
to
want
jest
to
friendly
achieve,
na
and
takim poziomie, tak?
it's
Tak
so
jest to
user
proste,
friendly. This is
widzicie?
so easy.
Okej, gdzieniegdzie,
Of course, at some
to
point
wymaga wiedzy,
in
na przykład,
at different
jeżeli ja chcę
in
czegoś
different places
w
it
Pythonie,
requires
to
some
ja
knowledge.
muszę
If I need
umieć
something in
zdefiniować,
Python,
czego
I need to
chcę,
be
ale
able
nie
to
będę
define what I
godzinami
know, but I will
się tym
not
zajmować,
be
tylko ten
spending
system to dla mnie
hours on this,
zrobi.
but the system
I
will do it
odpowiedzi
for
na
me.
twoje
So
pytanie
the answer to
brzmią
your
tak,
question
wydaje mi się, że
are
tak. Ja korzystam z
yes,
systemów
I used
takich
those
jak
systems
AI-21
just like
Labs, na przykład w
AI-21
pracy
Labs.
marketerskiej.
In
Robiliśmy
in the
eksperymenty,
marketer
już nie będę wam
work,
tego wszystkiego
we did
pokazywać, ale
experiments.
powiem
I
o tym.
will not show it
Robiliśmy
that to you, but
eksperymenty z
we
grupą
made the
marketerów.
I will
Robimy
tell you,
właśnie
we
tam
made
gdzieś tam.
experiments with the
To jest
marketing group,
nieważne, ale to chciałam wam
direct
pokazać.
marketing
O.
group.
Robiliśmy eksperymenty z grupą
We did
marketerów,
experiments
którą pytaliśmy
with the
o to,
direct
gdzie by
marketing
chcieli
group. asking them where they would want to cooperate with artificial intelligence, where is the work they would want to do by themselves, and where they would want the system to support them. And we told them, the marketers, that the two groups were working individually. One was working independently, one on the base of the transformer. We asked them to prepare a marketing campaign. And working on a marketing campaign is several different tasks, not one task. And you can delegate those tasks. You can collaborate with AI or do it independently. In the marketing work, there's a big creative element because there's a lot of searching of what the competition is doing.
research.
You do a
Jest
research.
część taka
You have a
bardzo
part
kreatywna,
which is
która
very
dotyczy,
creative,
no,
which
copywritingu,
refers to
prawda?
copywriting.
Jest część
There's a
dotycząca
part
projektowania
referring
kampanii,
to
gdzie w
to
różnych mediach
designing
jakie powinny
campaigns in
posty
which
powstać,
media,
tak?
which
Jaki
posts
powinien
should be
mieć
used,
ton,
what should be their emotional value, their
w tych
mood.
zadaniach te
And in
transformery się
those
już
tasks,
teraz
these
przydają.
these transformers are pretty useful right now. And the group that worked with the transformer, which prepared this with the transformer. So some of the tasks were delegated to the transformer. So for example, the transformer did advertising outline or budgeting of the campaign. It worked much better. It was faster at their work and more satisfied with the result. It occurred that this system is extremely useful. It required supervision, total supervision all the time, but this transforms your work. This works totally differently. You are the selecting person. Sometimes these transformers are multi-layered networks and they will spurt out gibberish, but if you train your network well, if you supply it with good data, it can do a lot of things to you. And script writing samples right now, it can do for you. At least for you to give you an idea how to work on something differently, and especially I would say for script writing or for things related to text, these networks are like a good tool. But as I told you, the visual ones, those visual networks like DALL-E are networks which correlate the text with the image. It's something different. You tell it what should be there, and you would need to give it some visual codes. So for example, just like in AI 21 Labs, when I experiment with that, I say, well, if I want a message which will be a bit colloquial or vernacular or more formal, what should be the emotional mood or emotional level, and the transformer will write urban slang for you, and it can write the same in the version of a message directed to very serious professors. So this is what it can do. It can do for you less perfect than you, but it will be sufficient for you to select things from. Then I would say yes, this is the direction where the things go. All right, because I think I've already speak too much. I wanted to show you one thing. This is Mina by Google, another transformer which learned to speak with millennials. Of course, millennials are old people, but with the Generation Z above all. So it uses their cultural code. It was trained to carry out short conversations on Messenger. So the level of personalization of the content and adaptation to the group, or the effect that you would want to achieve at this moment, is extremely high, and these systems can do a lot. So this is what I wanted to show you. We're half past. I spoke for a bit too long, so maybe the last thing I wanted to tell you, this is not very important, but the project of human AI synergy, the ones that we worked on, I wanted to recommend a book to you by Tom Malone, Superminds. It's a work about what would be the professions of the future with artificial intelligence. Totally, like, people will not be losing work, and the AI will be taking the job away from them, but on the meeting point between AI and human beings, on the creative work and management work, there's a lot of places where this artificial intelligence can, our individual intelligence, it can supplement our intelligence, and we are very inspired by that in our creative work. And this project of ours, we have a survey where we were asking people how they see cooperation with artificial intelligence, what sort of artificial intelligence they would want. They visualized for us what they do today, what they do, or where they would see the place for artificial intelligence. And it occurred that they saw this in many different places. Even if somebody is a marketer, they have a lot of ideas where they would want the system to support them and where they would want to work independently. This can be made more flexible, and our tools can allow us for intervention in many different places. If you don't want to, you don't need to. You can use it in different places. On the other hand, those friendly interfaces that are so easily to communicate, especially text-based, is something that comes very easily to people, especially when it comes to cooperation. There are no barriers. If I can write to the system like on the Messenger, I don't know if I showed it here, but if you can write what I would want it to do for me,
ten nasz asystent
So
wygląda
our
jak,
assistant looks
po
like
prostu taki messengerowy
like a
bot. Po prostu się
messenger
pisało,
bot.
zrób
You wrote to them,
kampanię dla tego i
prepare a
tego,
campaign
sprawdź
for
mi,
this and
jak
that,
jakaś firma
check
zrobiła
whether
kampanię
this
dla czegoś. No i
company
on
did
wyrzucał
the,
jakiś
the
link.
campaign for
To już
something.
była pomoc,
And
powiedzmy,
we
dla
got
takiej
links,
osoby.
and that was a
Więc,
help for such a person.
Tak jak mówię, my na razie robimy to na bazie
So
marketerów,
right
ale
now we're
chcielibyśmy iść
basing
do
that on
innych
the marketing
profesji.
experts, but
Rzeczywiście
now we
taka
want to
platforma,
open
takie
up to other
narzędzia,
industries and
pilotażowe
professions, and
tworzyć.
basing on the
I potem
marketing, we would
patrzeć, co
want to
ludziom pasuje,
prepare
co
like
im nie
pilot
pasuje.
tools
Jakby czy zawsze
based
jest
on
tak,
AI
że ta-
and what
że ten
people
współczynnik
like to work
efektywności
with
jest-
and
jest-
what they
jest
don't like
wyższy
to work
i
with,
czy
whether
rzeczywiście
always
możemy
this
dojść do,
this effectiveness
czterodniowego
factor
tygodnia
is
pracy dzięki
is
temu.
getting better and better, so we
Czy
can get to
raczej-
this
czy raczej jest tak, że
4-week
są na przykład takie
work week,
przestrzenie, gdzie-
four-day
gdzie po
work
prostu
week,
nie
or
działa zbyt dobrze?
are there
Na
like
razie
domains
w
where it
pierwszych
doesn't work
próbach
very well?
wygląda to szalenie
In those
obiecująco.
first attempts,
Także
it
mam
looks
nadzieję, że
extremely
sektor
interesting.
kreatywny,
So I
taki
hope that the
właśnie filmowy,
creative
na przykład
sector
mógłby być też,
could also
w dalszej przestrzeni na
in the
naszej-
further
naszej
space
agendzie,
be on our
takim
agenda
researchowaniu.
to research.
No dobra.
Fantastic.
Czy mamy jeszcze jakieś pytania?
Do we have any more questions?
Tak, pani ma. Proszę.
You have a question.
Może tak, to pytanie nie jest jakoś super sformułowane,
I
ale
don't think it's very well
po prostu
formulated, but I
chciałabym,
first I
jeżeli jest
wanted,
taka
if
możliwość,
there's a
jeśli
possibility,
będziecie
if you're not in a hurry, I wanted to sit down with you and share what I know and the research I did. And the second thing is, I'm interested in.
To jest tak, jak z każdym
It is
narzędziem.
just
Ono
like
ma
with
dobre
every tool.
strony
It has
i
good
złe
sides and
strony,
bad
prawda?
sides,
Można
right? I mean, you can
wykorzystać
use
dobrze
it
i źle.
to good purpose and the bad
Stosować tego,
purpose.
co jest bardzo
Something that is
pożyteczne,
very
dobre,
useful and
pomagają się uczyć,
advantageous. It
pomagają
helps us
robić
learn.
jakieś tam
It
rzeczy.
helps us do things
Pisać
easier in
maila,
life, writing
pisać
emails,
dobrze po angielsku i
write it
tak
well in
dalej.
English, etc.,
No, jak
etc.
każde narzędzie,
Just like
prawda?
every tool.
Ale jest, uważam w tej chwili
But I
taka
also believe
ogromna
that there's a huge
możliwość,
possibility
że po pierwsze wielu z nas nie rozumie
of
tych
us, you know,
narzędzi, czyli
we
jest
do not
jakaś
understand
grupa,
those
która
tools. So
ma
there's a
taki
small
advantage,
group
ma
which has
taką
advantage
przewagę nad nami,
over us,
ponieważ po pierwsze
because first
mają to w swoich
they have
rękach,
it
a po
in their
drugie
hands,
mają
and secondly,
wiedzę na ten
they have
temat,
knowledge
której
about
nie
that,
rozumiemy.
the
Wiele
knowledge
rzeczy
we do not
czytamy,
understand. We do not
są
know
cały
that our
czas
data
zbierane, że
is
jeżeli
collected
mamy
all the
Alexa w
time, that
domu,
we
to
have
trzeba
Alexa at
cały czas
home,
zaistnieje
it
nasz
registers our voice, etc.,
serwer.
etc.
I w związku z tym my na przykład nie
So
wiemy o
due to
tym,
this
że
fact, we don't
mamy
know
coś
that
takiego,
we
prawda,
have
że
spied our
potencjalnie
house.
takie rzeczy są
So
możliwe.
potentially such
I
things
chodzi
are
mi o to,
possible.
jakie my mamy narzędzia
I'm
do
wondering, what are the
mówienia
tools,
o
or
tym,
you as scientists,
że
what
jeżeli
tools do you
rozumiem,
have?
że następna
Because I
wojna
understand
teraz,
that the
wojna, jakakolwiek wojna,
any
no to
new
jest
war
jakby wojna przede wszystkim o dane.
is war about
Poza
data.
tym, kto kontroluje te
Apart
dane,
also
w jaki
who
sposób
controls
są
that
one
data,
wykorzystywane,
how
w jaki
is it
sposób one mogą
used,
być wykorzystywane
how this can be
przeciwko
used
mnie. I
against
widzimy
me,
tutaj te wszystkie takie
and we
patriot
see here
acts i
all
tak
those
dalej.
Patriot Acts,
Widzimy
and
wiele
things like
rzeczy,
that.
które,
We see
w
plenty
tej
of
chwili,
things
na przykład
that,
Google i
for
tak
example,
dalej, oni
Google,
totalnie
they
kontrolują
totally
to, jaki
control
jest content.
the content.
Mają algorytmy nawet ręcznie
They
robią
have
te rzeczy i
like
tak dalej. Czyli wiemy,
algorithms, they
że
do
to
it also
trafia w
manually
ręce
certain
ludzi,
things.
którzy,
So this
ja myślę, że
falls
taka
in the hands of
kwintesencją tego,
people.
bo ja ostatnio oglądałam właśnie na temat
Recently, I
biosensów
was
i tak dalej coś.
watching something about
I ja rozumiem
biosensors,
kwestie leczenia
and I
raka i tak
understand
dalej, i tak
all
dalej,
this
ale
about curing
bardzo
cancer
fajną
and
rzecz
things.
naukowiec powiedział
But
taką,
the
że w
scientists
momencie
in this film
problem
said that
polega
the
w
problem
momencie,
consists
kiedy
in the
wchodzi to
fact
w
that
ręce kogoś, kto chce to
begins when
wykorzystać
it falls into the
komercjalnie,
hand when
gdzie
somebody
wchodzi
wants to use it
komercja po
commercially.
prostu, gdzie wchodzi interes, gdzie wchodzi
When,
biznes.
you know,
I on jest po
interest
prostu
business enters,
bezwzględny.
and this business
Czyli
is
moje dane
absolutely
stają się,
ruthless, so my
czymś,
data
co jest do
becomes
sprzedania,
something saleable.
Poza tym jest możliwością kontrolowania mnie i tak dalej.
It allows to
Teraz moje
control
pytanie
me.
jest takie, jak my,
So
jako
my
ludzie,
question is,
w ogóle możemy się
we as
bronić,
people,
prawda? No
how
bo,
can we defend from
wczoraj
that?
z kimś rozmawiałam
Yesterday
na
I
ten
was
temat,
talking about
że,
that
na przykład, dlaczego
with
ja
someone, for example, that
posiadam
why do I have a
że chcę się
smartphone?
komunikować
Because
z
I want to
moimi bliskimi.
communicate with
Oczywiście tam mail
with
czy
my
jakieś inne
close
rzeczy
ones.
są wygodne.
Of course, email is useful, but the most important thing is why am I on Facebook? Because people can find me,
Mogą mi wysłać
they can
szybko
send me
wiadomość, czyli
a message.
poprzez coś, co jest
So
bardzo
through
emocjonalne,
something that is very
bardzo
emotional,
human,
very human,
jednocześnie
at the
jestem w
same time,
rękach
I
kogoś,
fall in
kto
the
może
hands
mnie
of
całkowicie
someone who can
kontrolować,
control me,
odciąć,
who can cut me off
skrzywdzić i
and
tak dalej.
hurt me.
Teraz my mamy
And my
pytanie
question
takie,
is,
czy, jakie my mamy w ogóle narzędzia,
what
żeby się przed tym
tools
bronić?
do we
Znaczy,
have
ja
to defend
jako
from that as a
człowiek,
human being, as
ale
an
też
individual, but
wy
also
jako naukowcy,
you
bo
as
wy robicie
scientists,
coś
because
dobrego,
you do
prawda?
something good.
Projektujecie coś, większość ludzi
You
ma generalnie
design
dobre
something.
zamiary,
Yeah, the majority of people
projektujecie
have
coś, ale nie wiadomo
good,
później, kto w jaki sposób to wykorzysta. I
good
tutaj jak
intentions, but you never
możemy
know
rozwiązywać takie
who will
etyczne
use
i
that
wręcz
later.
bardzo
So
personalne emocjonalne
how can we
problemy.
solve those personal and
Tak, no to
ethical
jest
problems?
oczywiście skomplikowana
Of course, it's a
kwestia, nie ile się
complicated
na nią
thing, and
tylko
I
odpowiedzieć.
cannot
Znaczy, dla
answer it in
mnie,
one sentence, but for me,
pierwszym,
the first
zadaniem,
the first
którego
task
państwo, zwłaszcza polskie, w tej chwili nie wypełnia,
that the
jest
Polish
edukacja.
Polish state
Edukacja
fails
od
in
bardzo
is
wczesnego
education.
wieku,
Education from very early
która ma charakter z jednej
age, which
strony,
on one
mówię
side
to,
and
z pełnym
I'm
przekonaniem,
taking
mając
that with full conviction,
ma
having an
charakter,
8-year-old
techniczny,
child
to
is
znaczy,
of technical character.
nawet jeśli nie
So
będziemy
even if
musieli
we will not
programować,
have
bo
to code,
transformery zrobią
because the
to za nas,
transformer will do it for us,
uważam,
I
że
believe that the
umiejętność
ability
jakby programowania
program
jako taka,
as
jako
such,
skill,
as a
taki
skill,
jak język angielski,
just like the English
jest
language,
szalenie
is
ważna,
extremely
dlatego, że
important
pozwala lepiej
because it
zrozumieć
allows you
systemy
better to
technologiczne.
understand
Podstawowa
technological
wiedza z
things.
zakresu
The
algorytmów,
the basic knowledge
która
about
pozwala
algorithms,
zrozumieć,
which
dlaczego
allows
jakaś
you
treść
to
dociera do mnie w
understand
tym momencie.
why
I w ogóle
given
zadać sobie nawet
context
pytanie,
content
prawda?
reaches
Dlaczego
me
ja
at this
widzę te
moment. Why
rzeczy?
do I see
A
things,
potem
for example? To
wyegzekwować
ask
swoje
yourself a
prawo,
question
które mogę na
and
przykład
then
na Facebooku
claim my
wyegzekwować,
right,
czyli
for
powiedzieć,
example, like in Facebook,
albo
I can
zapytać
say or
raczej,
ask maybe,
dlaczego ja to widzę?
why do I see
Ja to mogę
that?
każdorazowo
I
zrobić.
can
Dlaczego
always do
widzę
that.
ten ad?
Why
I
am I
odpowiedź
seeing this
powinna być
ad? And the
wyczerpująca,
answer
zgodnie
should
z tym,
be
co mówi regulamin,
exhaustive
prawda?
according
Znaczy
to
ja
what the
mam
regulator
prawo
says.
też
I have also the right
powiedzieć, że
to
każdych
say that
kolejnych reklam nie chcę widzieć.
I
Nie chcę,
don't
żeby one
want to
były
see
wyświetlane.
certain ads and I
Oczywiście
don't want
Facebook
them
będzie
to
to na
be
różne
shown.
sposoby
Of course,
obchodził, to
Facebook
jest
will be
jakby
circumventing that
biznes,
because it's
zresztą
their
teraz
business
mówili,
and
jak
those,
państwo nie
as you
mają
probably know, they do
prasy
not
i
have the best
kolejna
press in the world.
whistleblowerka się
And
pojawiła,
another
która
whistleblower came out
jakie są te
and said what
narzędzia
are the
i rzeczywiście
tools
oni
there,
będą
and they will
under
be
scrutiny
under scrutiny for a while
w Senacie w tej chwili. I pewnie
in the
dobrze,
Senate, and
jeśli
that's good.
któregoś z tego
I think
wyjdzie.
something good
W każdym
can
razie
come
jakby wydaje
out
mi
of
się,
that.
że, no nie wiem, no po Cambridge Analytice
I
muszę
don't know,
powiedzieć,
after
że tak
Cambridge
jak,
Analytica,
jakby okej,
yes,
przed Cambridge
okay,
Analytica
before
naprawdę
Cambridge
każdy mógł się
Analytica,
do Google
everybody
podpiąć do
could
Facebooka i
could
zaciągnąć dane. W tej chwili już po
could
tamtej
connect with
historii,
any app to
no,
Facebook and
sytuacja wygląda inaczej.
harvest data.
Narzędziem
Right now the
pełnego
situation is
dostępu jest
different.
Twitter. Tam my się możemy wpiąć wszyscy,
Only
kto chce.
Twitter is the tool of full access. I mean, everybody can access that. Good, evil people of different intentions can
Natomiast
can
Facebook jest narzędziem
access
dużo
Twitter and
takim,
use all the data.
powiedziałabym, trudniejszym
Facebook is
do
not
przebicia.
much more difficult
Ja ich nie
to
wybieram w
access.
ten
I'm
sposób,
not
tylko
trying
mówię,
to
że oni dlatego,
to
że
whitewash them,
spotkało
but
w-
just
to, co ich
because
spotkało po Cambridge Analytice,
happened
musieli.
something happened to them
Nie
that
chcieli,
happened
musieli
after
zrobić
Cambridge
pewne rzeczy.
Analytica,
Więc,
but they had to do certain things
To jest
with
jedno.
that.
I
That's
dla
one
mnie ta
thing. For me,
edukacja powinna mieć
education
charakter
should be of
techniczny,
technical
żeby,
character,
ludzie byli
so that
współproducentami
people
tych systemów, albo
were
przynajmniej tak czuli, bo to
co-producers
naprawdę
of those
wcale
systems,
nie
or they
zmienia
felt like that,
sytuacji.
because
Ja
this
mam na
changes
przykład połączony ten
the situation totally. For example, I do have my
To jest w małej
microphone
skali, ale ja
turned
się
off
dzielę.
in those
A
applications.
wcześniej miałam
In
tak, że
it's small
notyfikowałam
scale, but I
się
feel better.
każdorazowo,
I
kiedy
also
był
every time
kiedy był włączony mikrofon, to ja po prostu to widziałam, bo mi się świeciło.
and
że
before that I
teraz
had
nagrywamy.
notifications, and whenever my microphone turned on, I had a notification, and I
Więc to
could,
jest
for
taka
example,
partyzantka,
be silent
ale mi
and
się
not
wydaje, że
say
jeśli
anything.
wszyscy by
Of
tak
course, it's a
robili,
bit
to by to bardzo dużo
part
zmieniło.
like
Więc,
it's
z jednej strony
guerrilla
jest
sort
ta
of a
edukacja, z drugiej
warfare,
strony
but
krytyczna.
everybody can do that.
O czym
Also, you have a
mówimy?
critical
Rozmowa o tym, co to
this
właściwie jest ten system.
quality education.
To jest
So like talking about what those systems are about. You've got
rozumiem
two sides of a
społecznie, w
power
jakiej
man.
jesteśmy
Socially,
sytuacji.
I know
Z
what
jednej strony
situation I
rozumiem
am in.
technicznie, jak
On the
to
second
wyłączyć
side, I can
zmienić
know
funkcjonalności i tak
technically,
dalej.
functionally, I can know how to turn things off or turn them on, or how to use them. This is for me the core is of the healthy technological education and media education. Yes, I can see that's the end of my time.
Absolutnie. Od pierwszej klasy.
It should be
O,
there
nawet
from
zostałam
the.
wyłączony, został
I got. It should be made from the first grade, from the education be from first grade. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this for your next visit with us. I must say that you are steered by artificial intelligence because I've noticed that you speak twice as fast as last time.
Ale były slajdy po angielsku, to pomogło trochę, co? O, pokazuję, że...
Bardzo serdecznie dziękujemy i
Thank you very much, and I think and I hope that next year you will visit us again. Thank you very much.
Jeszcze chwilę zostaje, jeśli ktoś ma ochotę pogadać kuluarowo, to możemy. Ja je formalne.
Dziękuję bardzo, Pawle. To nie ja słaby.